Hello, friends, and welcome into NBA Now. I am your host, Tom Downey, so let's dive into the latest around the association, especially, when is the NBA actually going to return to the court? Adam Silver, of course, the commissioner, had a conference call with the Players Association to discuss where things were at, where they were headed, and when the NBA might finally be able to return to action. Now, there are, of course, still numerous challenges for a return for the players, for the NBA, but it's something we all run. So here are some of the highlights from that call. Silver said he wanted around a minimum 3-week training camp period. Well, it's May 10th right now. You guys can crunch the numbers. It's not coming back before the start of June. Maybe July makes a little bit more sense for a potential return for the NBA. Now, the NBA does want to keep the regular season. Really no surprise there. You want the games, you want to play as many games as possible. You want the revenue coming in as well. What Silver is pushing for is to limit the sites used for games. It reduces the risk. It makes more sense for the league to try and have as many games as possible in one location as opposed to shipping everyone out to different areas and traveling way more and increasing their risk. Maybe Disney World makes the most sense on that front there. He's hoping for a 7-game playoff series. Again, he wants to keep as many games as possible. And make note, this probably means there's going to be a delay to the start of next season. That makes some sense. You don't want to try and have a compacted schedule. You still want the offseason to run its course, but it does mean that you might have a later start for next season, whenever that ends up being. Now, if you think the NBA returns this year, or if you just want the NBA to return this year, I want you guys to like this video. I miss having sports. I want them to come back. So I'm asking everyone to put some positive energy out into the universe by liking this video. We'll see if we can't speak that into existence. Now, one thing in terms of a potential return that is tricky to figure out is the playoffs situation. Now, the Eastern Conference, maybe not as dicey. The Wizards are a full 5.5 games back. You probably just roll with those 8 teams. But where things are confusing is, look, if you have to cancel the regular season or reduce it, the Western Conference, the Blazers, Pelicans, Kings, and Spurs are all within 4 games. It's not exactly fair if those teams just don't get in because the season wasn't completed. Adam Silver called it a series of bad options was his exact phrase in terms of figuring out which teams end up making the playoffs. If they had to cancel the regular season, I think they just go with the top 8 teams in the West and in the East. So should the NBA cancel it? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Ideally, of course, the answer is no. You want to play as many regular games as humanly possible without increasing your risk beyond a normal amount there. But that is a very big concern for the NBA. So I will make this the pinned comment on the video. If you get an ad break here on YouTube, scroll on down, cast your votes. Y for yes, N for no. Now, the NBA probably does come back at some point this year. Not coming back, apparently, is Kevin Durant. Now, Woj reports that Durant simply is not going to return to the Nets this year, and that there had been some, Sean Marks, I should say, kind of left the door open, a little bit of a possible return. I think it was Sean Marks, or maybe he's one of the coaches. Either way, the Nets have kind of left the door open. Durant, remember, of course, ruptured his Achilles NBA Finals in June 2019, which feels somehow longer than almost a year ago. Kind of crazy how the world is right now. The Nets are 30-40. They're 7th in the Eastern Conference. Even with Durant back, given how injured Kyrie's been as well, bit unrealistic for this year to expect a potential return for Durant. And not a return, I should say, but getting back to prime Durant and leading the Nets on an improbable playoff run. Of course, the Nets could use him. In theory, they'd play the Raptors in the opening round of the NBA playoffs, whenever that ends up being, if the standings hold. You're hoping Kyrie can stay healthy now after all the injuries. Dinwiddie's played great. He's been a great bench guard for the Nets there. Karis LeVert is impressed, but the bigs haven't held up their end of the bargain. Even with Durant back, because the Nets have had such a disappointing year already moving on from their head coach, maybe it makes the most sense to punt on this year and get Durant fully healthy for next season. So with that in mind, should Kevin Durant return to the Nets once the season is back? Of course, assuming he's healthy. If he's not healthy, then the answer is no, right? So type 1 for yes or 0 for no. Back to some of the technical aspects of the NBA season. The report from the New York Post is that the salary cap, the future one, is going to be lowered. It is going to drop, which makes perfect sense, right? The NBA is missing out on a significant amount of revenue. I've heard 20%, I've heard 40% in terms of fans not being there because you don't have the gate sales and all of that. You're missing out on those revenue. And, of course, you're missing games right now. TV people aren't paying for games that aren't being aired. Like, they've missed out on a significant amount. Now, that hurts both teams and players. Pending free agents, if the cap does dip, even just by a little bit, that means less money for those players to get paid. So that does hurt the players in a significant way. It also hurts teams over the luxury tax. So keep that in mind. Teams like the Thunder, who we'll get to in just a second. And I guess in the end, Adam Silver is very aware of this in that conference call I mentioned. He told players that, look, the NBA CBA is not built to withstand an extended pandemic. Not many things are, so it is an unfortunate reality, but it is something both parties are going to have to deal with. Now, we're hoping everyone out there is staying safe amid this unfortunate situation that we're all in. If you want to rep your team while staying safe, head over to chatsports.com/NBA mask. They've got NBA-themed face masks, gray and black as well, with your favorite team's logos. This way, you can stay safe, protect yourself and others, and you don't have to, rep a boring gray one. You can rep your favorite NBA team instead. So I'll put that link in the comments and the description for you guys, but it's chatsports.com/NBA mask. Go check them out today. Let's move on now to Chris Paul. Remember how I said the salary cap could dip? That might help Paul and the Knicks. The New York Post, again, reports that, look, the Knicks remain linked to Chris Paul. That's not a huge surprise. I don't think this one's going to go away for quite a while, frankly, because of the connection with Rose, the new Knicks front office head man, and Chris Paul. It makes sense, right? Now, a reduced cap, I think, actually helps the Knicks land Chris Paul. Now, Paul had a bit of was in the midst of a bounce-back year for the Oklahoma City Thunder. He was playing quite well. The Knicks are trying to add some more notable big-name players. I think Chris Paul, even though he's not the same guy, still fits that mold. The assists were good. The points per game were good. He wasn't a negative asset like I thought he was, and I was wrong about entering this season. But his contract is still hefty. And if the Thunder are desperate to get under the luxury tax, shipping off Chris Paul is the easiest way to do that. You can save upwards of $40 million over the next 2 seasons by pulling that off, which maybe that means the Knicks don't have to give up as much there. Whatever it ends up being, it does save them money. Now, I do want to make note that 2021 to 2022 season is a player option. Chris Paul ain't stupid. He's not passing on $44 million. He's going to opt into that player option. So you're looking at a 2-year deal of, we'll just round it in the end, and we'll call it about $85 million. It's a lot of money. So I want everyone in the comments to predict this for me. Where do you think Chris Paul will play next season? I don't really even know what year that is, but I want you guys to predict which team Chris Paul will be on next season for me down in the comments section. A couple of, I should say just one, little draft note for you guys here. Isaac Okoro is going to stay in the NBA draft. Told Sports Illustrated that. Shouldn't be much of a surprise. Even though the deadline to withdraw is still a little under a month away, Okoro widely viewed as a top 10 pick. If you're a top 10 pick, you don't go back to school. You stay in the NBA draft, and yes, you need more development. You'd rather do that development in the NBA, getting paid a full-time salary, than in college, to go to class and all that kind of stuff. Now, the defense is impressive for Okoro. That's why you want to draft him. I got some concerns, though, because the offense, the shooting is just not there. 29% from deep. He is kind of a wing, got good size. It's 6'6", so you're betting on that defensive upside, and maybe you can coach him to shoot better. That's happened in the NBA, but that is a significant risk involved there with whatever team ends up drafting Okoro in the top 15, top 10, wherever he ends up going. So just keep that in mind there. By the way, for Okoro, go check out our NBA mock draft. My boy Jimmy put one together. He's got Okoro. I won't say where. You have to go find that one out for you guys. It's available on the channel. Let's talk briefly now about Zion Williamson because, well, he's in trouble, kind of, sort of. Remember, if you don't already know, Zion, his former agent, are in a lawsuit, and they're suing each other because Zion wanted out, and the agent said no, CAA interfered, blah, blah, blah. Well, now that former agent has claimed that Zion got illegal benefits from Duke, Adidas, and Nike before and, during he was a member of the Duke Blue Devils team. The claim was that Zion's mom and stepfather asked and received gifts to commit to Duke. Look, is it accurate? Who knows? Would I be surprised if the number 1 overall draft pick and highly coveted recruit got benefits to play at college basketball, given with what we know happens at that level? No, of course not. Do I really care about it either? No, not really. It's just a player getting paid on the side. Who cares? And the NCAA hopefully moving in that direction anyway. They're going to allow players to benefit off of their likenesses. Who cares in the end? And I also want to make note, there's no real impact on Zion's NBA career, at least not at this point anyway. Let's briefly hit the Last Dance, and if you don't want to be spoiled at all about what's coming up on the episodes this Sunday night, just skip ahead a little bit here. Episodes 7 and 8 of The Last Dance air tonight, supposed to feature, from those who have seen it in advance, a very emotional Michael Jordan. There are plenty of non-basketball moments. Of course, it's on ESPN. I know most of you are watching it. You're hardcore NBA fans, so no spoilers in the comments, but we will preview what's coming up on the 2 shows tonight. Of course, you have the death of Michael Jordan's father. That's part of the emotional side of it. His first retirement, which of course parlays perfectly into the baseball years. His return to the NBA, and what I am just personally excited to see, because it's a great movie, Space Jam. They're going to mention Space Jam and Jordan, how that all came together. So that's just some of what to watch for tonight for The Last Dance. But you're all NBA fans. I'm sure you can't wait to watch it anyway.